Hi, Lori from Stamp with Lori here. Thank you so much for joining our video today. I'm going to show you two-step stamping. It seems to be a trouble for some people and it's actually not hard. So we're going to tackle it today two different ways. I'm going to use the Stamparatus for this card and the next one I'm going to use clear blocks. So to get started, we need an 8.5 by 5.5 basic black cardstock folded in half. Then we need a 5 3/8 by 4 1/8 whisper white, 4 by 3 basic black, and a 3 7/8 by 2 7/8 whisper white. Now the other thing that also scares people away is when I start saying 3/8 and 7/8. So I wanted to show you so quickly here just how easy it is, and then you can overcome that fear. So in between the 1 inch and the 2 inch line in the 2 inch marker, you're going to see these lines. So if I say 7/8, then I'm going to start at the first line and I'm going to count to 7. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and right there, that's where I'm going to make my cut. If I had said 3/8, then once again I'm going to start at the first one and count to 3, and then that's where I'm going to make my cut as well. Most of your trimming apparatuses have all of these marks right on them, so it makes it that much easier for you. So I hope that helps. So what we're going to do is we're going to get started. I'm going to take the smallest piece of cardstock and I'm going to place it on my Stamparatus. I'm going to use the grid lines to line it up so that it's nice and straight. That way I can ensure that when I put my greetings on or any of my images, they'll be straight and not crooked. So I'll use those two lines and then I'll put my magnets on, and that will hold the cardstock down as I stamp. So I'm going to use the stamp set Happy Tales, and you'll see here this orange I have. That I've put a little note in there and it tells me that it coordinates with the Dog Builder punch. That way, if I'm ever using the Happy Tales stamp set, I know that there's either a die or a punch that goes with it. So it's going to give me some advice, and then I'm not going to freehand cut anything. So I'm going to start with the dog and the dog spots. And I'm going to line the dog up onto my cardstock where I want the image to be placed. And because I'm going to add a greeting, I can do the greeting for this at the same time as well. So I'm going to choose my greeting, and then I will place that also onto the cardstock. And then once I have it, both of them are exactly where I want them. They're nice and straight and ready to go. I'm going to leave them there, and then I will close up the lid of my Stamparatus. Okay, so I think that looks good. So I'm going to close my lid, and then the lid's going to pick up those two pieces of stamp set. And then I'm going to bring in my black Memento ink, and I'm going to ink up both of these stamps at the same time. So technically this is step 1 of two-step stamping. I'm going to place it on my cardstock, and there we have it. Now, because we're using a Stamparatus, had I have done this and some of it didn't show up, or if it was too light in some places, the beauty about this is the cardstock is going to stay in the exact same spot as is the stamp. So I can just re-ink the images, and then I can stamp again. This eliminates any of your problems where you missed a piece of the stamp set when you were inking it up. Or even if you want a darker image, then you can stamp it again. Okay, so now I'm going to clean off my stamp and take that off and put it back. And then I'm going to take my next part, which is the second step of two-step stamping, and I'm going to place it onto the dog where I want the spots. And when I have it where I want, once again, I'm going to close it. The lid will pick it up, and then I'm going to, once again, I'm still going to use my Memento black ink, ink up the stamp, and then I'm going to stamp the spots onto the dog. See how they come out? And they came out perfect, so we can carry on. All we have to do now is assembling. So that's two-step stamping using the Stamparatus. Couldn't be any easier than that. So now I'm just going to adhere all my pieces together. So I'll start by putting this Whisper White onto the card front using my tape runner. And then next I'm going to adhere my stamped image to the 4" by 3" piece of basic black. Now I do want to add some ribbon to this, so I'm going to add the ribbon before I finish putting it onto the card. So I'm just going to wrap a piece of 3/8" black glittered organdy ribbon to the front of this card here. I'm going to wrap it around behind and then just simply tie a knot where I want the knot to be shown on the card. And then I'll just cut the one end to take it away from the spool. And then once I get it adhered onto the front of a card, then I'll do my final trims. So I'm going to adhere this onto my front of the card now. Now I can see how much room there is on the cardstock, so I'll trim the rest of the ribbon to where I want it to be. Now, as I said, this has a punch with it, the dog builder punch, and the dog builder has a heart on it. So I'm just going to punch a heart out of the real red cardstock, and then I'm going to adhere this heart to the front of my card. It's a very small heart, so I'm not going to use my tape runner. Instead, I will just put a dab of glue onto my cardstock, and then I'll adhere my heart. So that's it, two-step stamping, plain, very simple. So I'll show you, we'll carry on with the next card. Okay, for the second card, we're going to make this floral card, and we're going to actually graduate from two-step stamping to three-step stamping. On this card, we will do both, and we're also going to use the clear blocks. This way you'll get to see how to use both when you create your own. So we're going to start with the 8.5 by 5.5 Melon Mambo, 5.25 by 4 Call Me Clover, and 5 by 3 3/4 Whisper White. So what we're going to do first is we're going to use abstract impressions, and you'll see that there's 3 sets to this first one. So that's our three-step stamping. Now what I also want to show you is that on the plastic that the sheets are, or that the images are adhered to, there's these little marks, and those little marks are for your guidance so that you know where to match up your flowers so that they're all coordinated. What I do is I will take a black Sharpie marker and I will put it where that mark was on the plastic sheet, and then the black Sharpie will stay there. So I put it on all 3. That way I'll always have my images lined up where they should be. Okay, so we're going to start with our Whisper White cardstock, and I'm going to use 2 colors for this, Flirty Flamingo and Mango Melody. So if you'll remember too, I said that there's 3 steps. So there's the really thick image, then there's the next, and then there's the skinniest one. So I'm going to start with the thickest image first, and for this one we're going to go light to dark colors. So I know where my black dot is just for my reference, so I'm going to stamp that first of all in the Flirty Flamingo, and then I'm going to stamp 2 more of these images. Then I'm going to take my next one with the next widest leaves, and I'm going to use Flirty Flamingo. Now because I'm going light to dark and I'm going to use Flirty Flamingo for my 3rd step, I'm going to stamp on the ink pad, stamp off, I'm going to line up that black mark where the other one was and stamp. I'm going to stamp on the ink pad, stamp off. See that little groove there? That's the same on all the flowers. That's where I'm going to match up my black dot to. Stamp off and then stamp on. Okay, so then we're going to move on to our 3rd and last step for the flowers. So this time I'm going to use the skinniest one, and I'm going to stamp into the ink. I'm going to line up where my black dots are again. I know where that lies on the image, and then I'm going to stamp directly onto the cardstock. And there you go. So you can kind of see that there's 3 colors there. Definitely 2 colors, but if you look close enough, you'll see how the third color just kind of melds it all together. And for my next flower, I'm going to use Mango Melody and Daffodil Delight. But this time, it's going to be dark to light with my flowers. And this is a 2-step, so I'm going to use these 2 pieces right here. So I'm going to start with the one image that goes on first, and I'm going to use my Mango Melody. Make sure that I choose the right one because it's hard to see which one's which. So I'm just going to stamp on the ink pad and stamp directly to my paper. And I'll stamp these randomly, so I think I'll probably use 5. Yeah, I'll use 5 of these. And then I will go to the second part of this stamp, and I'm going to use the Daffodil Delight. Now this one didn't have any marks on the plastic sheets, so I'm just going to use the centers. Hard for you to see right here, but it's very obvious when you have a clear block and a clear stamp where the center is. So I'm just going to stamp that over top using the lighter color. So now I've done one flower that's 3-step stamping, going from lightest to darkest, and now I'm doing 2 steps, the opposite, from dark to light. Then I'm going to use these these 2 pieces here, to create some leaves and give it a little bit more imagery on the sheet. Now this design is called abstract impression, so your flowers here, you'll notice, aren't like very soft and flowery, but once we're done, it's going to look really great. It's an abstract flower, so it's looking exactly how it should. So for this one here, I'm going to go dark to light again. I'm going to use the Call Me Clover, and then I'm just going to randomly stamp some leaves direct from ink pad to paper where I want my leaves to show. I think that's probably good enough. I can always add more if I want after I get the second part of the 2-step on. So now I'm going to stamp into my mint macaron, and I'm going to stamp over top of that image. So just enough of the image shows through to give it a little bit of depth and dimension, and shows you the vein of the leaves. I've had some customers in the past say how they don't really like 2-step stamping, but I think it's just more or less of being afraid to try it or not quite sure how to do it, so haven't. But you'll see here just how simple it actually is. There. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my greeting, and I think I'll use the Call Me Clover for the greeting as well. So I'll use this greeting right here. Ink it up, and then I'll stamp directly onto my cardstock. And there we have it. Now what I want to do is add some ribbon. I guess I tend to like ribbon. I always like some kind of a bling on my cards. It just, to me, it helps finish it and just makes it look finished and looks nice. So I'm just going to add some ribbon around. This is the 1/8 inch Call Me Clover grosgrain ribbon. So I'm going to actually attach that near the front here, or the top, I'm sorry. I'll attach it there, and then I'm going to adhere it to the Call Me Clover layer, and then I will adhere this layer to the front of the cardstock. Now the other great thing that's helps draw things in together is I'm going to add some pearls just to finish off this card. It just looks a little bland to me. So I'm just using one of my Stampin' Blends, and I'm going to color my basic white pearls. I'm going to color 5 of them using the Mango Melody, so I'm using the same color. And then I'm going to just use my tool, my take your pick tool, to adhere these to the front. Now these, once you color on these pearls, they dry almost immediately, so there's no fear of the ink coming off, and it just blends in perfectly to your card and gives it that finishing, the final touch, I guess that you could say. And then it needs a bow, so I'll attach a bow. Now I've got the bow on a glue dot, so I'm just going to use the glue dot to adhere the bow to the front of the card. And there you have it. So nice and easy. Thanks for watching.